Rolling. All right. Got a good group today. If you remember last time, it worked well when we muted our microphone in the bottom left. Then it kind of eliminated the background noise. And then if I call on you or want to hear from you, I can always unmute you from my side. Everyone's got a good chat going on. Nice. All right. What else? Oh, I want in the chat, go ahead and tell me one thing you're going to do outside today, because it's supposed to be really nice outside today. Tell me one thing you're going to do outside.
Right now. See, ask me. Hi.
Hey, Niall. We are typing in the chat one thing that we are going to do outside today, because it's really nice out.
Okay.
Do you see the chat bubble?
Not really.
I think it's at the bottom, if you hover over the bottom of the screen.
Oopsies. I don't know what's happening.
That's all right.
You just have to click that button again.
I don't
That's
know
okay.
how to do the card.
I'll help. Right here.
Oh.
I think we can mute ourselves because we're probably just talking out loud.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and last time we had everybody mute their microphone, and that helped with the background noise, and then I can unmute them if I call on them or something, so that's good. Jump on the trampoline. Paint butterfly bushes and roses, or plant the butterfly bushes and roses. Awesome. Basketball, good idea. Another basketball. Circus, awesome. Soccer. How did I know we'd have some of those? Ride bike. I might have to ride my bike. Play with the puppy. Awesome. All right, friends. Well, it looks like it's probably time to get going back into Because of Mr. Terrupt. So we went through September and October, and today I believe we get to start November. Now, it's been a while since we left off for the weekend, but Jessica, Danielle, Alexia are kind of in this friendship triangle, and I think they're starting to catch on to Alexia's motives and how she kind of plays people off of each other. She's not afraid to tell a fib or two to get people on her side. So let's go ahead and see, and we'll check in on the boys as well. We're kind of starting to figure out how to handle each other. So this first chapter is from Luke, and he is starting us off in November. It was November. Apparently, that meant time for Mr. Terrupt to get crazy with his math ideas again. I think he was on a mission to put us through his math gauntlet. $word. We're going to figure out the number of blades of grass in the soccer field, he announced one day. What? You're going to make us count grass? Peter yelled. That's nuts. No way, Nick was hollering. $word. How are we supposed to do that? Tommy said. I raised my hand. Yes, Luke? You mean we're going to estimate the total number, right? I said. Yes and no, Mr. Terrupt said. We'll actually do some calculating to get a reasonable approximation. I was beginning to think that Peter might be right. Yes, it's going to be difficult, but I know we can do it, Mr. Terrupt said. Besides, if everything we did were easy, then you wouldn't learn anything. We need to be challenged in order to learn. Mr. Terrupt was right about it being a challenge. None of us had any idea how we were going to count blades of grass, but we did. First, we decided we wanted to count 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter squares, which was my suggestion after Mr. Terrupt talked to us about sampling and how our government gets population numbers. Then we measured the squares on large pieces of cardboard and cut them out, so we were left with a piece of cardboard that had a 10 centimeter square missing in the middle. That was Mr. Terrupt's suggestion. Now it'd be easy to toss our piece of cardboard around the field and collect random 10 centimeter samples. So far, so good. Time to head outside. We marched downstairs and out the front doors by the office. Then we stampeded down the sidewalk until the end of the building. The soccer field awaited us on the side of our school. Interesting. Maybe we should do that. Count a bunch of grass blades. Does that sound fun? All right. We're going to Peter. He didn't sound too excited about this project. She was bent over counting blades of grass. It was a perfect opportunity. Mr. T was busy helping someone else, so he wasn't going to see me in action. I gripped the cardboard with my best hold, dipped my knees a little, and let the frisbee fly. It zinged through the air on its mission like a missile from a fighter jet. Bullseye! Ow! Lexi shrieked. My tushy! I almost died of laughter. I dropped to my knees. I laughed so hard I couldn't stop. I couldn't catch my breath either. Lots of other kids were laughing too. Lexi yelled something about her tushy and me being a jerk. Everyone that missed out on the fun kept asking what happened. What happened? Everyone except Mr. T. He came right over to make sure Lexi wasn't injured. Lexi was holding her tushy and hopping up and down, saying, ow, over and over. She's a total drama queen. Usually a teacher checks the spot that hurts, but I don't think Mr. T was real big on that this time. Peter, that's not funny, Mr. C said to me. Someone could have been injured. You're lucky you didn't hit anyone in the eye. Go sit down. I sat down. It was no big deal. If you'd been there, you'd agree. It was super funny. Mr. Trupp does not sound happy with Peter. So, this is kind of the first time we're jumping right back to Luke. So we started out with Luke, we went to Peter, and now we're back to Luke. We spread out all over the place, tossing our cardboard squares and counting the blades of grass. Peter, however, was flinging his square like a frisbee, even though Mr. Trupp had warned us that it wasn't a toy and to be careful throwing it. Maybe if things had turned out differently that day, they would have turned out differently in the end, too. I think what happened on the soccer field just set us up for disaster later on. So Peter was being his typical sneaky self, flinging his square and counting here and there. But as soon as he spotted Alexia bent over her square, he wound up and sailed a beauty in her direction. It was perfect delivery. $word. That tattooed $word. Her fanny. Ow, she screeched. Like, what the heck? What happened? Mr. Trupp instantly twisted around. $word. Like, someone just hit me right in my tushy with their square, Alexia cried. Ah, gotcha again, Mr. Trupp said. You okay? Yes, Alexia said. Mr. Trupp turned and looked out at us. We were laughing our heads off, and I swear I saw him smile as he shook his head at the whole scene. Peter, come over here, please, he said. Why me? Peter complained. Because we all know how much you like to talk about the tushy area, don't we? Remember from Peter's first chapter? Classic Mr. Trupp. Instead of blowing up, he was funny about it, but in a serious way. He sat Peter out for the rest of the activity and had talk with him. Peter didn't pretend to be innocent. But like I said, I think this set us up for later. The whole thing seemed funny. No one got hurt. Peter sat out. That was it. Once we finished tossing and counting, we headed inside, where we learned how to average all our data. Then we took our average number and used it to predict the soccer field total by figuring out how many of our squares could fit inside the field. The number of blades of grass in our soccer field equals 77,537,412. This isn't an exact answer, of course, but it is an accurate estimate based on all our calculations. Phew! I learned so much doing that project. It wasn't the stupid easy stuff I was used to getting from my teachers, that's for sure. We were math wizards. $word. All right. Good. Next is Jessica. Let's see if we get back into this girl war. Act 3, Scene 1. Things weren't going well. I had betrayed Alexia by being nice to Danielle, thinking that was what Belle Teal would have done, and then Danielle suddenly turned on me. Without warning, I knew Alexia was behind it. I was alone, except for the friends I had in my books, like Belle and Anna. In November, Mr. Trupp introduced us to a book that the whole class would be reading. The Summer of the Swans by Betsy Byers. I had never read this one, or anything by Miss Byers for that matter. This book won the Newbery Medal back in 1971. Mr. Trupp said he held the book up. It's not full of action like you guys tend to think of action, but it is a beautifully written book that's going to give us an awful lot to think about, learn from, and maybe even change because of. I straightened up. I was excited. Peter moaned. As for Alexia, well, she was somewhere in La La Land. The boys made faces and the girls exchanged glances. Then Mr. Trupp went a step further. We're not just going to read this book, he said. We're going to do an activity with it, an ongoing activity, more like an experience. Now, even Alexia was listening back from outer space. What kind of activity? Peter demanded. Not some sort of stupid book project, I hope. I hate those. No project. I don't really like those things either, Mr. Trupp said. What did he have in mind? I wondered. We're going to make us dress up as a character. You're going to make us dress up as a character, aren't you? Alexia said. Oh, I love doing that. Get real, Peter said. Will you guys be quiet and let Mr. Trupp finish? Jeffrey said. That worked. No more interruptions, and Mr. Trupp continued. That's really strange for Jeffrey. Usually he's really quiet. I want you guys to think about this book. In the story, there's a boy with Down syndrome. That's a mental disorder, named Charlie, and his older sister, not much older than you guys, named Sarah. They have a pretty special relationship. That's what I want all of you to think about, Mr. Trupp. Stopped for a second, yet somehow we stayed quiet. He continued. So what you're going to do is visit our collaborative classroom downstairs over the next few weeks. You'll go in groups in the mornings and the afternoons and simply spend time with these children doing what it is that they do. Mr. Trupp, I raised my hand, what exactly is the collaborative classroom? Still being relatively new to the school, I didn't know. Oh, it's where the losers go, Peter said. Alexia laughed. I hope you'll answer that question a little differently after this experience, Peter. Mr. Trupp said, his tone very serious. Peter didn't say another word. It's a classroom for children with a range of special needs, Jessica, Mr. Trupp continued. Some of you are probably a little nervous or even scared. That's why you'll go in groups. I hope you'll feel different afterward, too. Act 3, Scene 2. My group consisted of Anna and Jeffrey. I still hadn't quite figured Jeffrey out. On the other hand, I'd been eating lunch with Anna ever since being ostracized by Alexia and her clan. Ooh, there's a good word. Let's talk about that. Ostracized. So it says, on the other hand, I'd been eating lunch with Anna ever since being ostracized by Alexia and her clan. In the chat, go ahead and tell me what you think ostracized means. On the other hand, I'd been eating lunch with Anna ever since being ostracized by Alexia and her clan. All right, while the rest of you are typing, Trey, can I come to you? All right, let me unmute you real quick. Did it work? There we go. All right, Trey, tell us why you think it means left out.
Because she got it said ever since the word, I forgot the word.
Ostracized. Yeah, it's tough when it's not in front of you.
Then
Oh,
it
sorry.
sounds like those other two people were best friends.
Right, so kind of like you said since, and we know that she's having trouble with Alexia, and they've kind of left her alone now. She's not in the group. I see left out, kicked out. Good. Macy, let's come to you. sorry. There we go. Mute. And find Maria. There we go. Maybe. All right, Macy, go ahead.
I think he got bossed around because I feel like she like was bossing around, like I think it was Danielle or like them, so I think it means like
bossed around. Good. Yeah, so ostracized, you guys are all kind of right on the right path. So if we look at the context clues, it says since being ostracized. That was Trey pointed that out. We know that in the past that Jessica has had just had problems with Alexia. And then it says in her clan. So we know that Alexia has kind of got this whole group of people to go against her. We know it's probably not a good thing for sure. Nice job, everybody. All right, let me mute back and we'll keep going. Good job, guys. Way to use your context clues. All right. Danielle was back in. I was out, but I didn't want back in. I much preferred my time with Anna. She's quiet, but she's a lot smarter than everyone thinks. She's the only girl smart enough to stay out of Alexia's nonsense. Her mom's advice, she told me. We haven't talked about her mom or any of the stuff I learned from Danielle, and I haven't told her anything about me either. For now, we've kept our secrets, and that's okay. I like Anna. She'd make a great friend to a character in a book or in one of Dad's plays. I know she's going to be a great friend of mine. So if you remember, a lot of people were telling Jessica that she should stay away from Anna. And Danielle's family especially doesn't want Danielle around Anna because of her mom's past. But it sounds to us like she actually has a pretty great family. So hopefully that turns by the end of the book. We were very quiet on our first trip downstairs. Not one of us uttered a single sound. My hands longed to hold a book, but I hadn't brought one. So I bit at my fingernails and cuticles instead. It's funny how when you're anxious to get somewhere, the journey seems to take forever, and when you're not too anxious, the journey is over in no time. My journey from California lasted about as long as a ride on the Viper roller coaster, and our journey to the collaborative classroom took no time at all either. When we arrived, it was clear the teacher was expecting us. Hi guys, she said. Welcome to our collaborative classroom. I'm Miss Kelsey. We introduced ourselves and then she led us inside. This is Joey, Miss Kelsey pointed to a little boy with boogers all over his face. Can you say hi to our friends, Joey? Miss Kelsey asked. Joey waved in our direction. A gigantic smile stretched across his face. And this is James over here, Miss Kelsey said, pointing to a different boy. James looked pretty normal to me. He didn't say hi to us, though. He didn't even look at us. This is Emily over here. The little girl Miss Kelsey pointed to was very cute. She had drool all over her face and hands and arms, and she moaned a lot. A different teacher used sign language as she tried to communicate with Emily. The teacher struggled to maintain eye contact with her. She told Emily to say hi. That's Mrs. Warner helping Emily right now. Emily tried to say hi to us, but I could tell she wasn't particularly good at talking. There were a few other children in the room, and Miss Kelsey eventually introduced us to all of them. I became distracted at this point because Jeffrey had walked over to Joey and started playing the game, Memory, with him. I couldn't believe it. I heard him say, "That's a great job, Joey. You're really smart." And Joey smiled. Anna and I were on our way out with Miss Kelsey and James and Emily to help them do their jobs before we left the room. And I saw Joey giving Jeffrey a big hug. So maybe this is what Jeffrey needs to come out of his shell. That'd be really cool. Act 3, Scene 3. Jobs turned out to be sorting the plastic forks, spoons, straws, and napkins for the cafeteria. Miss Kelsey poured the utensils on the table and James said, 712. I looked at Anna, puzzled. What do you mean, James? I asked. 712, he said again, looking down at the table. Does he always say 712, I asked. I figured he was yelling out random numbers. No, James is telling us that there are 712 utensils on the table, Miss Kelsey said. 712 utensils on the table, James repeated, this time looking at Anna and me and swaying a little bit as he stood. Great job, James. Miss Kelsey sounded so excited. You looked at our friends, then you said that. Or when you said that. Miss Kelsey, do you mean James is right? Anna asked. Are there really 712? Is it the same amount every day or something? Well, I haven't actually counted them to double check, and no, it's not always 712. But James has never been wrong before, Miss Kelsey said. Anna and I exchanged astonished looks. I was confused. James had done this amazing counting, but Miss Kelsey seemed more excited that he had looked at me. I wanted to ask questions, but decided to wait. I didn't know if asking was appropriate. We finished up the jobs and walked back to get Jeffrey. Act 3, Scene 4. Jeffrey was still playing with Joey, as well as a couple other kids now, and he was helping them paint. Jeffrey, I said. He looked up. We have to go back now. Oh, okay. His shoulders slumped. He turned to the kids. I've got to go, guys. I'll be back soon. Then it was hug time again. We thanked Miss Kelsey and headed back upstairs. We didn't talk on the way through the halls, and I think we each had too many thoughts in our brains. By the time we reached our classroom, Jeffrey was grumpy Jeffrey again. Our very own Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, I thought. All right. Next is Jeffrey. Peter called them losers and Alexia laughed, like it was funny or something. I should have just punched them then. It's a good thing they weren't in my group. I went downstairs with Jessica and Anna, and they seemed a little scared, but I didn't say anything. Right off the bat, Jeffrey seems pretty upset with how his classmates are handling this. That's usually not like him. He's pretty quiet. We walked into Miss Kelsey's class and met the kids. They were great. Joey was full of love. All he wanted to do was play and hug me. He didn't get upset about anything, not even winning or losing when we played games. James was reading this big book when we first walked in. I could tell he was real smart. I figured he was autistic right away because he didn't look at us or say a word. And little Emily was so cute. She needed lots of help. But who wouldn't want to help? They reminded me of Michael, just like the collaborative kids. Michael had the power to make you feel really good whenever you were with him. Love poured from him. I've never told anyone about Michael and wasn't gonna, but Jessica knew something was up. She's pretty smart. She notices things. After we visited the collaborative classroom a few times, she came up to me at recess one day. I was sitting at the edge of the field out where no one else ever comes. I was looking through my football cards, putting them in piles by positions. You have a secret, don't you, Jeffrey? She said to me as she sat down. What are you talking about? I said. Who do you know with special needs? I kept sorting my cards and I tried to ignore her. I wasn't going to tell her anything, and then she moved closer. I've got a secret no one knows about too. No one, not anyone at this school, she said. So why would you tell me? I asked, looking at her this time. I was reading this book, Ida B, and in it the girl finally talks a little about her secret and it helps her out. You're always reading, I said. The characters help me understand and think about things, she said. They help me know what to do. QBs, where was that pile? Is that why you handle Alexia differently than any of the other girls? I said. I guess so. Well, you can tell me your secret. I'm listening. Can I look at some of those cards while I talk? She reached for my running backs pile. No! I pushed her hand away. Nobody ever touches my cards. She was quiet. I might have scared her a little. Sorry, I said. I'll just hold my book then. She was quiet for a minute. I waited and she took a big breath. My dad didn't come to Connecticut with us, she said. He directs plays and found a girlfriend at his work, a beautiful actress from one of his productions. My mom decided we needed to get away from California and my father. So here we are. I kept sorting my cards, but I was listening, and Jessica knew I was. After a few seconds, she kept talking. She had more to get off her chest. I didn't want to come, but my mom told me I had no choice. Boy, was I ever angry with her. Angry like I've never been before. I figured my dad was dumping her, not me. So why did I have to leave too? Silly, right? I could never live without my mom. I stayed busy with my cards because I didn't know what else to do. I didn't want to ruin it for Jessica. She had a lot to tell, so I stayed quiet. What I didn't know at the time was that my dad wasn't only leaving my mom, he was dumping me too. The last time I talked to him was back at the beginning of the school year. He phoned to talk to me, but he hasn't called since. I knew what it was like to have a parent that didn't talk to you. I had too, but I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. Then recess ended. Next is Anna. I was pretty scared when Mr. Trupp first told us about going to the collaborative classroom. I didn't know those kids, only that they were gross and messy, but I didn't complain. I was happy when I found out Jessica was in my group. She and I have been eating lunch together. She's always reading and she's smart, but she doesn't act like a know-it-all. She tells me about her books if I ask. without giving away too much of the story. I wasn't expecting or looking for a special friend, but Jessica showed up this year all the way from California, and I like her a lot. I'd like to ask her over to my house, but no one has ever come over before. I'm not sure what Mom would think. I'll have to think about it some more. Jeffrey was in our group too. All I know about him is that he always seems mad at everyone. That wasn't how it turned out, though. Jeffrey was nice with the kids, really nice, and I didn't feel scared because Miss Kelsey and Jessica were with me. Miss Kelsey, I knew, was nervous, and she helped me get used to everything a little at a time. I noticed she didn't wear a wedding ring. Mr. Trupp had a lot of options. Little Emily was so cute. I didn't want to touch her hands because she always had them in her mouth and had slobbery spit all over them. But Miss Kelsey gave us this handkerchief to wipe her up with every once in a while, and then it was okay to touch her. I held her hand on the way to do jobs, and on the way back, she smiled at me, and then I felt like I was going to cry. I hadn't expected that. One day, after everybody had been to visit the collaborative classroom at least once, Mr. Trupp decided we needed to discuss our group experiences. Mr. Trupp, I said, before we got into a serious discussion, did you know that Miss Kelsey doesn't wear a wedding ring? Is that so? Said Mr. Trupp. Yes, and neither does Miss Newberry from across the hall. I did know that, but thanks for those observations, Anna. Sounds like Anna's trying to play matchmaker with Mr. Trupp. Uh-oh. Then Peter started in. Oh, Trupp and Newberry sitting in a tree. Kissing. Okay, Peter. Haha. Mr. Trupp held up his hand. Enough of the matchmaking, though. I appreciate you looking out for me, Anna. Now, how about sharing your experiences? I wanted to tell Mr. Trupp that my mom didn't have a wedding ring, but he'd moved on. Jessica was the first to speak up. Mr. Trupp, why is James in that room? He seemed really smart. Yeah, Peter said. He knew how many forks and stuff were on the table, even without counting them. You should do some math with him, Luke. Not exactly a loser then, huh, Peter? Mr. Trupp said. No, Peter's voice lowered, and so did his head. No one said anything, probably because we were so shocked that He's really smart, Jeffrey said. No one said anything, probably because we were so shocked that Jeffrey had spoken and because we didn't know what he meant. James had some things that he's really into, and he knows everything about them, Jeffrey went on. A lot of people like him have a special talent. James is great with numbers, but he has his problems too. Hey, we should have had him tell us how many blades of grass there were in the soccer field, Peter said. Yeah, and then I never would have got hit in the tushy, Lexi told him. Peter grinned. But that was the best part. All right, you two, that's enough, Mr. Trupp said. How do you know all that stuff, Jeffrey? I said. Even before I knew I was asking the question, I felt instantly bad. Jeffrey wasn't looking for extra attention. Jeffrey didn't answer. He was quiet again. All right, let's see. How much longer do we have? I think we can make it. We got a couple more. All right, moving on to Danielle. We haven't heard from her yet. Lexi was in my group going to the collaborative kids. Part of me was happy about that. Part of me wasn't. Things were a little confusing. Every time we went to the collaborative classroom and every time we came back, Lexi would talk bad about Jessica, even Anna sometimes. Don't you think Anna belongs in this room? She's so stupid, Lexi said one day. Even if I wasn't supposed to be friends with Anna, I knew she wasn't stupid. I knew because she was my plant partner, and she helped me a lot during that unit. Plus, Anna was the only girl not involved in Lexi's schemes, which made her brave, too. Jessica should just stay down here. She doesn't have any normal friends, Lexi said. The weirdest thing of all was that Lexi was really nice to the boys and girls in the collaborative classroom. Joey loved her. Okay, Joey loved everyone, but he always smiled and hugged Lexi, and she was really patient with Emily, too. Seeing Lexi like that helped me feel more comfortable in the room, and I had a good time with the kids, especially James. Jeffrey told us that James had certain things he was really into, and one of them was farms. His brain was crammed with information about tractors and machines and cows and milking, so I brought in a bunch of pictures from homes, and James went nuts. He spouted off facts nonstop as he looked at each picture. Udders. These are the cow's udders. Clean her off and use... Next picture. Hey, Find it in the bales or rolls. It's hard work to hay. Throw the bale off the wagon and put it on the elevator. Stack the bales in the hayloft. Next picture. John Deere tractor. Classic green and yellow. Lots of horsepower. James talked more to himself than anyone else, but that was okay. His mind was racing. When our time was up, I tried to take the picture and he started screaming. Really screaming. Not words, just noise. Really loud noise. And it kind of scared me. I let go of the pictures and Mrs. Warner came right over. I got out of the way. He can keep them, I said. That's very nice of you, sweetie, Mrs. Warner said. James, can you say thank you to your friend? Ah, James yelled and struggled to free his body from Mrs. Warner. James has had a hard time knowing when time is up and switching to another activity, she said. I felt bad for James, watching him have this meltdown. It's okay, I said. You can keep the pictures, James. Bye. More yelling and crying and screaming. I hoped he would calm down soon, but I had to leave. I wanted to go. I didn't like seeing that. The whole situation upset me, and I think that was what gave me the courage to say something. We had just gone out into the hall when Lexi started right in. Like, what a weirdo. We better fix him up with Jessica. She's the weirdest one in our class. Where'd I leave off? Just stop it, I exploded. Why do you always have to be so mean? You're nice in the room with them. Why do you have to be mean now? Fighting back tears, I turned and ran down the hall. He likes cows, Lexi yelled after me. Maybe he should date a cow like you then. Oh, man. Hot tears streamed down my cheeks, and I ran upstairs and into our bathroom. Jessica was there. Are you okay? She asked as I came through the door crying. Here was my true friend, and I knew it now. I'm sorry I've been mean to you, Jessica. I won't do it again. She walked over to me, and we hugged. I felt better. Dear God, it's Danielle. I now know that Jessica is my real friend. I pray that you can help Alexia not be so mean, and I pray for James. He was awful upset today. Please help him feel better and learn to handle when time is up. Thanks. Amen. All right. Well, we're going to end with Alexia. She seems to be going through lots of different emotions right now. She's being mean, but she's being nice. I think something's bothering her, maybe. We'll see. Alexia. Like, Peter knew what he was doing out there on the soccer field, hitting me with that frisbee. So, I was constantly reminding him that he had killed our plant. I told you so, I kept telling him. Yesterday, he told me to stop annoying him. Peter's always picking on me. I bet it's because he likes me. All the boys think I'm pretty. They like my fancy clothes and sparkly lip gloss. They sure don't look at Danielle. She got so upset with me. She's never yelled at me before. Must be she's getting braver and she's getting fatter. I'll have to fix things with her again. I do like going to the collaborative classroom. I don't have to worry about things down there. The kids in that room love you no matter what. It's nice. Teach had a good idea with that one. Joey likes my feather boas. I always wear them to his class so he can see them. I think I'm going to ask if I can put some lip gloss on Emily. I think maybe she'll like it. Every girl should try some lip gloss. The line that sticks out to me there is when she says, they're nice to you no matter what. So it's almost like she feels pressure to be perfect in her own classroom. Thumbs up if you agree. You think she feels pressure in her own classroom to be liked? Yeah, we have some thumbs up, some thumbs down. We'll see. All right, friends. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. We'll be back at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Sound good? All right. Bye, guys.